So yet another Flume remake. This time I made Like Water by Flume, and it was actually a lot easier to make than the last one. It was less complicated basically, but still learnt a lot of really cool stuff that I'm going to teach you guys in this breakdown. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, the bell notification. I would really appreciate the support, and it would really help me grow my channel. Now, as always, all of the project files and download links in the description below. Let's just do it, yeah. So there's a lot to cover in this track, but I'm not going to touch base on it all. I'm only going to touch on the things that I think are the most important parts and that are the coolest parts and that you guys will learn the most from. So let's start with this. I don't want to play it too long because I don't want to get a bloody copyright warning. But this is, seriously, this is just a preset from my preset pack Focus. It's on my website, link in the description below. And it's just a medicine preset with a really short plucky filter because it's pluck. In the effects, I've got downsampling happening because I want it to have that like glisten, but it wasn't enough downsampling for me, so I added some second downsampling. This is what it sounds like without the second. With second. Now this is just a free plugin from Crush called Tritic, and you can actually choose where you want the downsampling to happen. Sounds nice there. Now underneath that, there's some Foley. Foley is one of the best ways to fill out your song and to make it sound unique. Flume does this in every one of his songs, and it is such a powerful technique. So here he's got just like some sample with some form of rhythm in it. And it actually came from a massive big sample, but what I did, I just chopped a little section that had some tiny little bit of rhythm in there, and I just duplicated it. That's it. It's not exactly the same as Flume's sample, but hey, it's close enough. And then this one here is just Rain. And I just did the same thing, just duplicated it. But what I did on this one was I actually got an EQ and I removed all of those low frequencies. There is just way too much low end in there. So get rid of all that. Sounds so much better. Awesome. Once the verse hits, things start getting a little bit interesting. So we have a second set of plucks here that actually have different notes playing in them. Slightly different rhythms. And I think that's really cool because it keeps the listener interested because there's subtle differences, you know? Now this was actually a pain in the ass to make this synth. I gave up and then I went back to it. But the way I found out how to do it was actually by recycling the main synth in Never Be Like You. They got me thinking, Flume does this with all of his presets. And now I'm like listening to his music. I'm hearing the same presets in all of his music. All I did was I changed one of these sawtooths to a square wave. And then I just changed the envelope to make it sound like a pluck. But where this sound really comes to life is with Ott Chorus and Reverb. Now with them, the OT makes it glisten, the chorus makes it a little bit wider, and the reverb just fills it all out. In the second half of the verse, he layers this like hi-hatty thing with the pluck. Now I tried just layering like a sample over the top of this, but it sounded too robotic. So what I ended up doing was I actually put a serum in here and I just dragged and dropped a sample onto the noise oscillator. Then I changed the phase and the random. And what this does is it starts the sample at a different point every time. So it doesn't sound that robotic. It's more like, and then on top of that, I also click these two buttons here. This plays the sample once and then this one makes it follow the pitch of the notes you're pushing. Layer that on top. For the basses, I've got two basses. I've got a respace and a sub bass. The respace is actually from the preset pack again, but I've added a second layer here up 2 octaves. So that was without it, and this is with it. It adds a mid bass there, and mid bass in any music is so important, especially EDM. Now I've kind of removed all of those sub frequencies to create space for my sub bass. just makes it sound a lot bigger and juicier and fuller. For the drums, a simple kick and snare pattern like this. Like that is so simple. But where it comes to life is when he puts the reverse snares in on the first and the third. That's what gives it the whole bounce of the whole song. Flume's songs bounce, and it's a hard thing to do is to make it bounce. So these are the things that help. But it still kind of sounds empty, yeah? Doesn't sound full enough until you add this to it. Now that is just a crash sample that I've duplicated 4 times, and I've turned them down progressively. And I've automated the panning here to pan left and right, however much I wanted it to. But there's also some ducking in there. So what I did was I created a sidechain track dedicated to sidechain, and I put the kicks in where I wanted it to duck, but then I just muted it. In this here, you just choose your sidechain track, and it gives it that ducking feeling when the kick's not there. For the bridge, I guess you could call it, he's got just a simple cello. And the chords, once again, just simple 3-note chords. But where this comes to life is by adding a mid bass again. Isn't that crazy, man? Like, and then with the mid bass, that is ridiculous. Mid bass, write that down, mid bass. And that's actually a recycled preset from Rushing Back, which he also used in Never Be Like You. And then a lead comes in on the second half. Now you can see there's some pitch bends in here. I've just done this in the MIDI clip itself, so you click MIDI control and then pitch bend, and then you can just pencil things in like this to add your pitch bends. But in the actual synth itself, I've got glide activated, and that helps it glide in between the notes when they overlap. But he's actually got like a couple of different lead layers here. And they harmonize well together. Which is really cool. It's like, hey, don't just use one lead. Let's try and layer 2, 3 leads and see what cool harmonies you can come up with. A good rule of thumb is to make the second chorus sound bigger than the first chorus. A way to do this is by adding just a couple of extra layers. He's added a synth like this. And he's added some rises like this. When you play that in context with everything, it just sounds so much bigger and fuller. And I've actually said this in a lot of my other videos. If you want your songs to sound fuller and your drums to sound bigger and more impactful, is just add a ride on every first or second downbeat. Simple things like that, some impacts like this, just really help fill things out. Then he gets into his second verse here, where he kind of drops everything out, creates some empty space here, but then brings in his intro stabs again. It's actually really simple. Like, how many tracks are there here? There's probably 10, 20, 25 tracks. Goes to show that you don't need to have a song filled with layers and everything for it to sound good and for it to go mainstream radio. So I hope this has helped, guys. I hope it shed some light on the matter how Flume remixes or Flume makes his music. There's some tips in here that you can use in your own music, and I'll see you on the next one.